Hola.
Hola.
Okay, I'm here with LucifroN, obviously. He just won the group at WCS. Coming into this group, like, what kind of form did you think you were in yourself? Because when I talked to some of the other players, they were saying that even though amongst the 4 names in the group, there were bigger names than yours, they were saying, like, getting Heart of the Swarm now, actually, a lot of them thought that you were a favourite to get out of the group, like some of the other players in the tournament. Like, did you have this sense yourself?
I didn't really know. Like, against Nerchio, lately I have very good results. So sometimes I lose in certain situations, but I thought that, like, I planned like how the game should go. The most important thing was whether he opened gasless or not. So once he opened gasless, I was really happy about it, to be honest. And I thought that I knew what I had to do to win the game. And then against MVP, I didn't know what to think because I haven't seen much of him in Heart of the Swarm. But TBT seems to be like, when I play on Team Story Cup against Korean Terrans, it feels easier, in fact, than European because they do not play the same style than us. Like, they do not focus so much on hellbat drops and do other things. So oftentimes I always end with an economic lead and with better army against them. So yeah, I didn't think that I was the underdog, but I wasn't as confident as to call myself the favorite of the group.
Speaking about ZVT and TVZ, a lot of the European Zergs are obviously complaining that, you know, everyone just uses the hellbats all the time. And you're saying there that you actually didn't think that the Korean Terrans did it that much. So, like, how should we evaluate how strong this unit is? Like, is there a reason you think as to why the Koreans don't just abuse it all the time? It's like this ultimate unit.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's true that a lot of people say that Terran is right now really strong, but judging from Korean tournaments, which I think is the most important thing when talking about balance, because they are obviously the better players, Protoss is doing extremely well on Pro League and Zerg is doing good on GSL. So I don't really think there's any kind of Terran imbalancing. I just think that in 2012 there were really few Terran foreigner players, so Zerg and Protoss maybe got too used to losing to really few Terrans. And now in Heart of the Sun it is true that in the foreigner scene a lot of Terrans are doing better. And maybe they are I think they are exaggerating a bit. Like, I want to wait and see the next Korean GSL to see what happens, but I think that balance is done judging from Korean results mostly, not foreigner tournaments.
Because actually, the first opponent you played, Nerchio, was someone who's actually known to sometimes make comments about balance complaining. And he might say he's joking, but I think he actually believes some of that stuff. So when you played him in these games today, like, one of the things is, because we remember him being so good towards the end of Wings of Liberty, that's when people remember his peak form. Like, how good was he actually in this tournament? Like, did he have chances to win against you, or did you have, like, a pretty good approach going against him, do you think?
Well, the way the games turned out, I don't think he could have won them because, well, the first game, my 4 Hellions ran to his natural. Like, there was one little spot on the right side of one queen, so at that point the game was over, so not much to talk about that game. Then the second one, again, he lost like 10 drones to a hellbat drop because he didn't have a single spawn or a spine on his natural, and he had all his roaches in the main because of the 3 Hellions. So at that point he was really behind, and then what he tried to do was kind of smart, I think, because he droned a lot and just prepared for my 2-2 push, because Terrans usually don't push before that, but I attacked before it, and he hadn't enough units to stop it. So yeah, I think that those games they weren't like normal games where you can say, okay, this is imbalanced. Like, he lost because certain things that happened, not because things are imbalanced. Like, had he defended better his natural second game, then the game wouldn't have been bad for him.
One of the things that you always see whenever people complain about imbalance is that initially when they're complaining, it's because they kind of they want to do the same thing they did before, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work over and over. But then eventually, if the game doesn't get balanced, they have to actually just figure out a counter to it or come up with something that works. Since you've played so much on the ladder, you must have played a lot of Zergs. Like, what can Zergs actually do against the hellbats? Because the biggest complaint I hear from the Zergs is that they say because it has so much health that you have to sort of leave part of your army in the base, whereas they want to be like really greedy or they want to go out with their big army. Like, what can they do to actually counter it, do you think?
Well, in fact, I once played against Solky and I tried to hellbat drop him and he beat me 2-0. What he did was not so much a counter to the hellbats, but he focused a lot more on creep spread than most European Zergs. So because his creep spread was better, he could get a better economy faster. Like, he would get to 70 drones way faster than most foreigner Zergs, who make a lot of units to defend from them too early. So what he did was get a lot of drones, then get spore crawlers, and then make Zerglings. And he always targeted the medevac. So the most important thing when defending a hellbat drop is to attack the medevac so he can keep coming back and back again, because it's kind of easy to micro the hellbats so that they don't die to links or roaches and go between bases. But the main thing is damaging the medevac. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that most foreigners do when defending hellbats, that they try to kill the hellbats, but that's not how it's done.
When you saw you were going to face MVP in the winners game, sure, like you've played a lot of great players now, you've played a lot of tournaments as well in StarCraft 2, but is specifically with him, is there sort of like an intimidation factor of knowing you're going to play him at all?
Well, because I hadn't seen much of him in House of the Swarm, I didn't really know his level, so I wasn't particularly intimidated. Like, he's MVP, so he's good. Like, in the past, in several tournaments when he was playing, I thought that he would do not so good. And then he got to the later stage on IM Cologne, for instance, another tournament. So I wasn't neither overconfident nor underconfident, so to speak. Like, I knew I just had to play like I played on ladder, and just depending a lot on the first game, adapt or not my style. But he didn't seem to know how I played because he opened Reaper, even if he was going mech. So that tells me that he wanted to scout a lot and that he didn't really know what to expect.
Okay, so the one person you didn't get to play in the group was SaSe because you won 2-0, but you must have planned, like, in case you had to play SaSe in the winners or the losers game, like, what were you expecting and what kind of things do you think you would have done if you'd have played him?
Well, actually, for the last 2 weeks, I have been preparing some TP strategy that I'm not using neither on ladder nor on tournaments. So I was planning to use that here if I played him, but I didn't, so I guess I would save it for the round of 8.
As we're doing this interview now, you've just won the winners game, so obviously we don't know who will join you out of the group yet, but we know that people who got out of the other two groups. So it was TLO and ForGG, and then it was Baby Knight and Happy. Okay, so we got 3 Terrans, no, a Zerg, a Protoss, and 2 Terrans so far. Like, actually, if we just look at the star power of the names and all the people in the groups, okay, some bigger names have actually gone out, and some of the people, like, for example, someone like Happy, who might not have been expected to make it through, have made it through. So the actual round of 8 so far is actually maybe a little bit weaker in terms of the net star power than people thought. Like, you play a lot of these European players on the ladder all the time because of, like, where everyone's stacked up. Like, were these actually the strongest players? Do you think some of them had just good days? What do you think of it overall? Like, how strong is it so far?
Well, ForGG and Happy, I was pretty sure they would advance. Then I really thought Vortex was going to advance. I'm not saying this because he's my brother, but I really thought that he would do it. But, well, he's been really busy with exams and so on, so it's understandable. Then from Group A, it was TLO, MMA, and Strelo. Well, TLO advancing isn't that surprising, but if I was asked before the tournament, I'm not sure if I would have said that, okay, TLO is going to advance. Like, for sure, ForGG would advance in that group. And then any of the other 3 players, I think, had the chance. And yeah, Happy, I was sure he would advance. And yeah, maybe I did it over Vortex, but for me, that was an upset.
So, I mean, it's possible like, if you finished first tier, then I think it means you play a second place guy in the round of 8. So if we think of the 2 second place guys, you have Baby Knight and you had 4GG, so it's possible you might face 4GG. I can't remember what the bracket looks like, but let's say, imagine that you were then to face someone like 4GG, or at some point in the tournament you will. At the moment, everyone's raving about, he's got this incredible TVT record, he's doing so well. Like, you must have played him a bit. Like, what do you think of his TVT? And like, yours TVT looks very good here today. How would it match up, do you think?
He wins me more than I do on ladder. Like,
why do you think that is?
Well, he's got like maybe not that much, but 60 to 70% win ratio against mid. It's because he knows how to counter hellbat drops extremely well. Like, he's developed new build orders that deal with it pretty well. So it's kind of hard to play him. Yeah, I would say his TVT is the strongest right now in the players living in Europe. So yeah, I mean, I may beat him in a best of 5, but I'm not the favorite for sure against him.
Since Happy also made it out, I mean, even though you were saying like you would have actually picked him because you know like his current form from the ladder, etc., he's someone who, even in Wings of Liberty, he was like a bit like Kaz. He was just like a practice machine playing like 1 million games on his account, and he was known in Warcraft 3 to be a very good offline player. Do you have any ideas or theories as to why he didn't really have any like big success in StarCraft 2 offline? Because I mean, he went to a lot of tournaments, but nothing ever really happened, you know.
Yeah, well, I think that in Wings of Liberty, Terran wasn't the kind of race that you could play and be predictable. So, like, you had to mix a lot your game, and Happy isn't the player who does that. So in tournaments, in offline tournaments, it's not hard to prepare against him. So everyone just blind countered him all the time, and that's why he kept losing. But he wouldn't mix his style, so it would happen once and once and once again. right now in Heart of the Swarm, you can be predictable and still win a lot if you execute everything right, which he does. So that's why he's having now more success than before.
Even in Wings of Liberty, towards the end, after the WCS result especially, people were saying, okay, like LucifroN's one of the best Terrans in Europe. Though it was like mainly between like you, maybe ThorZaIN or someone. You were already considered like up there in terms of Terrans, but you never really had like a big tournament win, or like aside from WCS, you never really had like a really good top 3 placing. So do you feel as though like in terms of overall game balance, like Heart of the Swarm's really shifted things in your favor now?
Yeah, well, Heart of the Swarm is better for Terran than Wings of Liberty for sure, so it's better for me. But I think I did have some more results than the WCS thing. Like, for instance, I won the Gathering in Norway and I won the IPL Dice earlier this year against the Scarlet in Wings of Liberty. So, yeah, I think my results were good, but I don't think it's so much because of Wings of Liberty, but because I wasn't playing that much until 2012. So, yeah.
Now that you've made it to this round of 8, one thing I noticed whenever I looked over your results in Wings of Liberty is in the bigger tournaments, you often would get out the group stage, you would always do that, but then in the round of 8 is usually when you would get knocked out. Like even if you looked like to be a favourite against that matchup, do you think have you ever had any sort of problem? Is this something you've noticed yourself that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I have a lot of problems when playing with noise. So, like when there's a lot of noise and the earth is kind of shaking when I'm playing and stuff, I think it affects me way more than most players. That's what I think, because I really cannot focus and will do everything wrong. So yeah, that's why a lot of times I was analyzing my results earlier, and I realized that whenever I played on the stage, I would get crushed. But it's not a matter of getting nervous because of it, but because of noise and other things that really do not let me focus.
I mean, is the round of 8 here going to be in a studio like it was here? So you think this will favour you then?
Yeah, definitely. I think that playing in this condition is much better for me.
In terms of coming into this tournament, like we haven't seen the group that's going to play tomorrow yet, obviously, and this is the one that has like it seems like a pretty even group. It has like DIMAGA, Feast. Who else does it have? Stephano. Who's the 4th one? ThorZaIN. Okay, so this is like a very hard group for people to predict. If I ask you just now, since I'll put this up today, to give me your predictions, who do you think are the top 2 coming out of this group?
Do you know who's playing first against who?
I'm not sure of that actually. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it might be Feast versus Stephano. I think that could be it.
Yeah.
And DIMAGA versus ThorZaIN.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think ThorZaIN has a good chance to make it through. Maybe Feast, but it's really even. So if I had to pick 2, I would say ThorZaIN, Feast. Well, ThorZaIN, Stephano. I would say ThorZaIN, Stephano, but it's kind of close. So I can see any of them for making it.
One last thing I want to ask you on the topic of WCS. A lot of the NA players, because a lot of them got beaten by Koreans in their league, were so angry that like Koreans are allowed to compete in WCS NA and they were getting a bit mad, etc. What do you think overall about like the concept of letting the Koreans compete in the other regions? Do you think it's okay?
Well, if they really believe that it's a regional tournament, then I don't think it makes much sense. But it's like they wanted to organize it that way. I think it's kind of bad for newcomers or foreigners that really, like for instance, last year WCS was the chance for a lot of people to make it through, and this year not so much because there's like top players, like very top players in each region. So yeah, that's kind of sad, I guess, but I mean, it's the format. It's like the way they wanted to make it. But I just think that they shouldn't call it a regional tournament when it's not.
So one thing I noticed when I looked at who'd made it through already in WCS and who's left to come, okay, so maybe it's possible MVP might still make it out today, and maybe it's possible Stephano or someone could make it out. But aside from those 2, a lot of the big names that we're used to winning the tournaments like won't necessarily even be in the round of 8 here. And so it's possible we might have a champion that people wouldn't really expect. I mean, from what you know so far of who's through and who might get through next, who do you think is the overall favourite? Who's the strongest player in this field?
ForGG, I think, is the overall the most skilled player in the whole WCS Europe. So yeah, I think, well, to be honest, his games against TLO surprised me, the way that he planned them, the strategy he used. But if he plays like he does on ladder most of the time, then I mean, he's beatable, but he's the favorite, I would say.
Do you think there's something that changed from Wings of Liberty then to now? Because he was known to be good in Wings of Liberty as well, but I heard some people say like he was kind of predictable in his style, did the same thing a lot.
Yeah, he was a bit predictable sometimes, and overall hard to discern, it's better for Terran, that's true, so that helped him a bit as well, and I don't know, he's the kind of player that he practices a lot, and he perfections his style, so to speak, so that he eventually gets answers to everything by using the same build, so he's not the kind of player that you can tease or surprise, so you have to play straight up against him, and it's harder and harder because he practices so much and his mechanics are kind of great and so on, so it's really hard to play against him.
Okay, any final words or someone you want to thank or say hello to?
Oh, no, just thank to everyone who watched the tournament, and just tune in Round of Fate, and I hope I can do as well as I have done so far.
Gracias.
De nada.